So we just had Easter come and go. It was Easter Sunday just yesterday, and in this episode of our Rewind, we're going to look at the Crucifix or Crucifixion DOS virus, as it's also sometimes called. Now, there's three variants of Crucifixion. There is variant 2914 and 2916. 2916 being the original version of this, and then there is a modified version, which is variant 2888. So we're going to look at the 2916, the original, and the modified 2888. The 2914 is essentially the same as 2916. So let me go ahead and load up the 2916 variant of Crucifixion. And when we do, it just returns us to the DOS prompt. It doesn't give us any kind of output to the screen or anything like that, but it has loaded itself into memory and has hooked into interrupt 21. But Crucifix has a rather interesting method of infecting files. Unlike most viruses that infect files using interrupt 21 when they're accessed, what Crucifixion does is that it monitors when a file is either created, like say if I made a new word processor document in Microsoft Works and saved it, or if I copied a file, it would then infect that as well. And it won't just infect the target file if I do a copy, it will infect both the source and the target copy. So let me go into DOS2, and I actually did not copy any files to it, which I actually should have done, but no matter, we'll go use the original DOS directory. So we got all our DOS files, and the thing I should also point out about Crucifixion is it only infects .com files when they're copied over. It does not do it to executables. So let's find something like what we got there that we can see. We have mouse.com, which we can see is 15,108. So let's copy mouse.com to DOS2. Okay, we copy the file. Now, let's take another look at mouse. And now it's grown to 18,024 bytes. So that's the source mouse file that's been infected. Let's go into the second DOS directory. Look at mouse there, and it's the same size, 18,024. So again, Crucifix has infected both the source mouse.com file in the original DOS directory and the target copy of mouse in the second DOS directory that we just did. So they both have the Crucifixion virus code in them. So it will do this again whenever a .com file is copied, or if we were to create a new file and save it. So we'll go straight to the payload, and the payload activates any Sunday, whether it's in March or April of any year. So I've got the computer set to yesterday, which again was Easter Sunday. So whenever the user decides to do ctrl-alt-delete, they'll get this on the screen. So we get a little graphical payload there of Jesus kind of on the cross there with the title thing from the author, and then kind of a printout there that plays along against with the "You're Happy and You Know It" song. And then when it's done, it performs a cold reboot of the system, not a warm reboot, because it reloads all the post tests as we're seeing here. And we ignore the errors because I've temporarily put DOS on here from a disk. Go back into DOS real quick here. And so that was Crucifix 2916, and again it's the same for 2914 as well. Now we're going to look at the other version of Crucifix, which is 2888. But one other thing about Crucifix 2916 and 2914 I want to mention is that for some reason those variants of Crucifix, their infections are broken. And I'll show that what I mean. Let's go to DOS2. So I'm going to try to load mouse. And you see mouse just returns to the DOS prompt. But the thing is, mouse is actually supposed to display a few lines telling us it's from Microsoft and that there's no mouse on the computer here, because again that error code on startup is because I don't have a mouse connected. But you see it just brings us back to the DOS prompt. And of course the source mouse does the same thing, just brings us to the prompt. And you think, okay, well, obviously those are infected with Crucifix, but if I do the same ctrl-alt-delete on Easter, well, see, nothing happens. So apparently Crucifix, the original 2916 and the 2914 variants, are potentially destructive because of their broken infection routines, because they have essentially destroyed the original and the copy of the .com file that we had there of mouse.com. So if someone had Crucifix 2916 or 2914 on their system and it behaved that way, then any time they copied a file or created a new one, it would be destroyed by the virus, essentially. It just wouldn't work anymore. So let's go ahead and look at Crucifix 2888. Again, this is a modified version of 2916, 2914. However, this one's infection does work correctly because it does replicate properly compared to the other ones. So let me go into temp and load up Crucifix 1, which is the 2888 variant. And this one actually does give us a printout from Sophos because that's the provider of it. It's an Oxford sacrificial.com goat file. It gives us our length. So let's go back to DOS. And let's look at something like sys.com. So we see sys.com is 11.472. Let's copy sys.com to our other DOS directory. And look at it now. And it's now 17,248 bytes, so it has grown considerably in size. So, now of course, when we talk about variants, the 2888 bytes is usually the size of the virus code, but as you see, that's a lot more than 2,888 bytes. That's probably because it's carrying the original virus code with some of the changes that it's made to it. So, it could also be the way that DOS 4.0 is working with the virus, but anyway. So we see there we've got it copied. Let's go back to here, and of course we see that our target copy is also infected with the 2888 version of Crucifix. Now of course it's got the same kind of payload as the other one, but the payload is different. We do ctrl-alt-delete this time. So that time we got the same kind of payload with the same kind of song, but the text has been replaced with something different from the author of that variant. So, and again, when it's done, it goes into a cold reboot and get back into DOS here. But I'll show that this version does have the correct replication compared to 2916 and 2914. So let's go into DOS2, let's reload sys, and you see sys.com is actually working because it's asking for us the parameter for the command, but we've reloaded Crucifix 2888 into memory. So we go back to DOS here, and let's take another look at a COM file we can use. Let's use keyboard.com. That's 14,198. So let's copy keyboard.com and look at keyboard now. And it's 19,974. So obviously this variant is working as it should. And again, 19,974. So obviously it's there. We can run it. Keyboard works fine. Again, we use ctrl-alt-delete. And we get the payload again. So that's pretty much it for the Crucifix or Crucifixion DOS virus. Again, 2888 from what I've shown here replicates properly. Its infection routine doesn't break the programs, so it's able to spread around. 2916 and 2914, for some reason their infection is broken and they end up destroying both the source and copy target files. So that's the only downside with that. But Again, that's the Crucifix or Crucifixion DOS virus.